9.5 and its consequences have been a disaster for SMITE. It greatly increased the tankiness of gods who didn't naturally have it, but it has destabilized the meta, has made conquest unfulfilling, has
Whoa, calm down, Mr. Kaczynski. Kept you waiting, huh? As we finally reached the halfway point, I feel this is the perfect time to discuss Year 11. What started out with the prospect of being one of the best seasons SMITE had to offer has become kind of a breeding ground for controversy within the SMITE community. With the season being particularly light on new content, the devs have had to find new ways to keep the community satiated.
Back, please! Back! I warn ya!
The lack of entirely new gods being injected into the sandbox has caused Titanforge to go with the route of fixing issues with older gods and providing changes to some of the interactions their kits have with the already existing sandbox. Some of these changes are welcome, such as animation timing fixes, and some aren't. Fuck you, Vulcan Turret. Look, I'm not going to pretend that with the announcement of SMITE 2 that the writing wasn't on the wall that SMITE was going to take a backseat for the foreseeable future. However, this has led to the belief that the meta has become increasingly stale at a rate that far outpaces the slow pace of content that the season has provided thus far. I mean, look at the reception to the mid-season patch. While a rework to the Tier 2 system is a good idea for getting current players ready for the SMITE 2 systems where, from what I can tell, the value of items exceeds that of SMITE 1, this has led to a seemingly panicked revert of the changes made back in patch 9.5 of the game.
What's the missile now?
For context, if you didn't already know, 9.5 was a shift in the base stats of every single class in the game in an attempt to raise the time to kill. Base HP and protections were almost doubled and had a significant increase per level. And with these changes, it was expressly stated that damage items were not going to be hit. Keep this in mind in the future. This was extremely potent, as the game saw a shift into tankier metas, such as support auras turning carries into late game raid bosses that hit like a truck and did not die. And although over the years adjustments have been made to bring the overall potency of items down just a hair, the ever-evolving nature of the game and changes to the sandbox have complicated the revert in several ways. Changes to how healing works in 10.3 and shifts in stat distribution among items, namely damage mitigation following that update, making it far less potent, and for good reason I might add. And most recently, lifesteal has seen a substantial change, with the shift away from healing off a farm and focusing more on god combat healing. Look, I don't necessarily think that a 9.5 revert is a bad thing, but I think that it sets a weird precedent for the game going forward, valuing short-term excitement over long-term health. But it seems that sentiment falls on deaf ears since the game is really at the end of its lifespan, so why does it need long-term health? The way I see it is that Titanforge is kind of counting their chickens before they hatch. SMITE 2 is still a long ways off and a lot can happen in that time.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Whoa, wait. Before you get out your pitchforks and torches,
Let me be clear.
before this revert, the early game was excruciatingly slow depending on the matchup. It often felt that even with ganks from your jungle, the enemy would always manage to slip away on 1 health like they were some sort of Batman villain. The revert has made the early game a lot more refreshing and fun to play since it feels like you can actually do something to the enemy team instead of just farming to get to the late game. However, on the other hand, the late game is excruciating since it seems that only the jungle or the solo laner get to even play the game. The bursty nature of assassins has allowed them to thrive in this meta because they're able to get in, kill somebody really fast with 1 or 2 abilities and get out. On the other hand, warriors have a lot of natural damage and tankiness that allow them to just get in there and keep casting over and over again without dying. And while that sounds like it would help regular supports, that's not really the case because they don't have the damage to keep up with whoever's trying to kill them. And the late game often devolves into which team can one-shot the other team faster with very little counterplay. And the problem isn't necessarily the stats themselves, it's more the items. It's become a trend over the past couple of years that when an item is underperforming, you just slap a couple extra effects or stats onto it, leading to a massive amount of power creep. And this is also the case with some of the designs of newer gods such as Ixchel. She was designed for a time when gods are a lot tankier than they are now. She essentially has an Anubis ult, but she's allowed free movement. And if you're playing a character with no movement abilities, there's kind of nothing you can do because her ult far outlasts Aegis. And while I don't know how to fix the god problem in particular, the item problem can be easily solved. You can just take off a few stats somewhere, maybe even take off some flat pen, maybe the cooldown, something. Like if you're gonna make an item a stat stick, it shouldn't have a strong passive also to match. But I get that this is long into SMITE's lifespan where the community is very used to building items that have a lot of stats and a strong passive. So if you get rid of one or the other, you're just gonna cause more controversy than it's gonna solve. While this video does sound a lot more negative than I wanted it to sound, I actually quite enjoy Season 11. I actually love that they brought back certain items. Bringing back Nemean Lion gives a strong counter to crit builds that isn't just building Spectral. However, some of them are also overtuned, like Shifter Shield. When it's meta to pick Shifter Shield in every single role, I think it's a little overtuned. The only item that I really have a problem with them bringing back was Hasten Fatalis. Please get rid of it. I quit for 6 months in Season 4 because that item was in the game, and I'm not going to provide any logic, any examples. I just want it gone. And overall, that's just kind of what I think about the season as a whole so far. It seems that after the 9.5 revert, I lean a little bit ever so slightly towards the negative camp, but in all honesty, that might just be because I had a bad string of ranked games lately. I'll probably get over it. And no, I don't want to play into the narrative of, oh, it's so over for Smite, or oh, it's so back, that the CEO of Hi-Rez was talking about. This is just kind of the sentiment that me and my duo queue have had for a while. But I would really love to hear what you guys think about the season. Even though I ghosted my channel for the last 2 months, I do still read comments sometimes that flow in, and I really like to see the discussion. And I don't know if you've already noticed, but I sprinkled a couple codes into the video just as a quote-unquote reward for waiting so long. Have at 'em. Evidence of their corruption spread throughout the game.